Some saw it as pride, others called it plain boldness, but for Red Bull, it was a matter of staying alive. When Honda once again confirmed it was stepping away from Formula One, Red Bull suddenly found itself in serious trouble. Their hopes of continuing their championship-winning form were at risk. History certainly wasn't on their side. The previous fallout with Renault had left behind scars and burnt bridges. There were barely any doors left to knock on. Turning to Mercedes or Ferrari, not a chance. Neither was ever going to supply engines to a team that posed such a direct threat on the grid. With limited options and time ticking, Red Bull had to think fast and think smart. What came next was unexpected. A hyper-sure deal struck right at the edge of uncertainty, with the very company that was walking out. Honda, the same Honda that had only just come out of a tough and reputation-damaging stint with McLaren. It was risky, it was messy, but in Formula One, you either adapt quickly or fall behind. Red Bull's grand plan for their in-house engine, set to be ready for 2026, was already running into trouble. Reports started surfacing talking about issues with both performance and reliability. Suddenly, that bold move they made, it didn't look so steady anymore. People began asking, was their decision to team up with Ford going to fix the cracks? Or were they heading straight into another storm? Was this going to be another power unit disaster, the kind that could shake the very foundation they had built over years? By October 2020, things were already looking shaky. Honda came out and officially declared their plan to exit Formula One. By the end of the 2021 season, from their side, the logic was clear. They needed to shift all their focus towards electric technology and innovation. The pandemic had taken a toll, and F1 no longer seemed worth the huge financial and technical effort. Their statement made it obvious they wanted to redirect company resources into research for future power systems. A costly Formula One program didn't fit their bigger picture anymore. For Honda, it was time to move on. For Red Bull, it was nothing short of a disaster. With Honda stepping away, Red Bull found itself facing the kind of situation that could break even the best teams. Mercedes and Ferrari shut their doors quickly. Both saw Red Bull as too strong of a rival to assist in any way. And after everything that happened with Renault, there was no going back. The wounds from that breakup were still fresh. Red Bull wasn't just running out of time, they were running out of options by the time the 2022 season arrived. Red Bull, one of the most powerful forces in the sport, was staring at the terrifying reality of having no engine supplier. Honda's exit didn't just affect Red Bull, it sent ripples through the entire paddock, but as the dust began to settle, Red Bull team principal Christian Horner stepped back to look at the larger picture. He admitted that Honda's choice came at a very difficult time, during the COVID outbreak, when the whole world was already dealing with uncertainty. We didn't really have many doors open, Horner reflected. Mercedes said no. Ferrari was complicated. And as for Renault, we knew exactly how that would go. We've been there before. That road didn't feel right anymore. In the end, Red Bull realized that they had to take matters into their own hands. At one point, there was talk of simply taking over Honda's technology and continuing with the same engines under a different badge. But it wasn't that simple. Once they began exploring the idea seriously, the challenges became clearer. Horner admitted it openly. It wasn't just about putting their name on the cover of the engine. It was about logistics, factories, equipment, personnel, and the full-scale setup that goes into building a competitive power unit. This wasn't just a technical switch it was a massive undertaking. With no perfect solution in front of them, Red Bull and Honda worked out a middle ground. Honda wouldn't fully leave. Instead, they'd stay on in a support role working quietly behind the scenes, while Red Bull carried the branding. Honda Racing Corporation's Koji Watanabe explained that, though the company had stepped back in public, in reality, they were still doing all the work on the engine side. Honda's quiet involvement kept Red Bull running. But the peace didn't last. Formula One changed the rulebook again. The upcoming 2026 regulations introduced new requirements. Engines would now rely more heavily on electrical energy, and every team would have to use 100% sustainable fuel. For Honda, this wasn't a problem, it was a chance. The kind of opportunity that aligned exactly with their long-term goals. That after walking away from Formula One more than once, Honda did what they'd done before: change direction again. The new engine rules, with a balanced focus between combustion and electric power, caught their attention. As Koji Watanabe pointed out, these changes matched what Honda had been aiming for all along. Their focus on carbon-neutral fuel and advanced hybrid systems made F1 relevant to their future once more. And so, they made their return official. But by the time Honda had a change of heart, Red Bull had already moved forward. They weren't waiting around anymore. A huge investment had already been poured into building their own engine division, called Red Bull Powertrains. Based in Milton Keynes, this new project had one main goal: complete independence. Even with Honda reconsidering, Red Bull wasn't going to abandon the work they'd already started. Still, both sides did try to find common ground. They discussed a setup where Red Bull would build the combustion engine while Honda handled the electric side. On paper, it looked like a clever way to share the load. But the deeper they went into the details, the more problems came up. Combining two completely different systems, from two different groups turned out to be more complicated than expected. Making the engine run as one unit required perfect alignment between both parts. That level of coordination would have been a nightmare. Eventually, they agreed it wasn't going to work, so Honda made another big move, this time teaming up with Aston Martin. It was a fresh partnership, one that gave them full control, and a team that was hungry to climb the ladder. While Honda locked in their future with Aston Martin, Red Bull pressed ahead with bold confidence. In 2022, during the launch of their RB18, Red Bull stunned the motorsport world by revealing a partnership that caught many off guard. They had joined forces with Ford. At first, this announcement sparked mixed reactions. Some critics dismissed it as a throwback move, assuming it was just a branding deal designed to create buzz by putting the iconic Ford badge back on an F1 car. But time would prove otherwise. What began as a headline soon turned into something much more substantial. Ford wasn't just signing checks and adding logos. They were heavily involved behind the scenes, contributing to critical technical areas. And it wasn't just any contribution. Ford was bringing some of its most advanced technologies to the table, especially when it came to hybrid systems. In fact, Ford still holds the record as one of the most successful engine makers in Formula One history. Their 176 Grand Prix victories placed them behind only Ferrari and Mercedes. So while they had been absent from F1 for a while, their experience and technical know-how had never disappeared. Christian Horner spoke about the collaboration in clear terms at a Ford Performance event in the US, stating that the team knew they were facing an enormous challenge. "We've got a mountain ahead of us," he said. "There are 48 weeks of non-stop development and stress testing before the engine is even ready to compete in 2026. Ford's contribution wasn't limited to engine mechanics. One of their biggest strengths was advanced 3D printing. This wasn't just about speed, it was about producing key engine parts with an incredibly high level of precision. These weren't simple pieces of metal. They were advanced materials engineered to handle the insane stress of racing speeds over 300 kilometers per hour. Christian Hurley, Ford's head of powertrains, explained that the parts had to survive the brutal environment of top-level racing. And to make that possible, Ford had brought in specialists from different parts of their company, people with experience in automotive, aerospace, and even defense. Ford wasn't just lending a hand through its motorsport division. They brought in people from across their entire company, experts in electronics, materials, science, software, and thermal management, all combining their skills to help Red Bull powertrains come to life. Christian Horner stressed that this collaboration wasn't just about resources, but about blending two strong engineering cultures with a shared target, creating a competitive power unit by 2026. On paper, things looked promising. Red Bull now had the financial strength, technical backing, and full independence to shape its future in Formula One. But away from the public eye, not everything was running smoothly. Whispers started to circulate in the paddock about problems behind the scenes. Reports emerged suggesting that Red Bull's new engine was not delivering the kind of output they had expected. Performance benchmarks, which were once confidently shared within the team, were now being quietly adjusted. Some insiders hinted that the power unit was lagging behind the competition, especially in terms of durability. It wasn't just about speed anymore. It was about keeping the car running reliably across full race distances. This triggered uncomfortable memories for Red Bull fans. Back in 2014, when the hybrid era began, Red Bull had been caught out badly. Their partnership with Renault was plagued with technical problems. Constant engine failures made it nearly impossible to challenge Mercedes during that period. That same uncertainty now loomed again. To make matters more complicated, Jos Verstappen's father and advisor to their star driver Max Verstappen made comments that raised eyebrows. If the engine wasn't competitive enough, he hinted, Max might start weighing his options. Post 2026. That sort of talk added pressure on Red Bull's leadership, and then came a report from a respected Italian outlet. They claimed that the power unit was not only struggling with output, but was also showing serious reliability issues during internal testing. It added fuel to the speculation that Red Bull's grand project may be hitting real trouble. While the rumors of underperformance and fragility kept gaining momentum, Red Bull continued pushing forward, refusing to back down. They've built a reputation on doing things their own way, even when the odds were stacked against them. From switching engine suppliers to launching their own power unit division, the team has never shied away from big, risky decisions. Red Bull knows that the road to building a successful Formula One engine isn't smooth. It takes time, relentless testing, and constant refinement. And while they may be new to this side of the sport, they're not short on ambition or resources. Ford's advanced technology and Red Bull's competitive spirit could still be the formula that turns this gamble into a success story. The bigger picture here isn't just about horsepower or lap times. It's about controlling their future, their strategy, and their championship hopes. By developing their own power unit, Red Bull aims to break free from dependency and ensure that no external supplier can ever leave them vulnerable again. But time is ticking. Rival teams like Mercedes, Ferrari, and even newcomers like Audi are already well into their 2026 engine programs. The clock doesn't stop in Formula One, and any misstep now could echo for seasons to come. Red Bull is betting big, and the whole world is watching. Will their bold move with Ford give them the edge they need to stay on top? Or will the lack of experience in engine development prove to be the weakness that other teams exploit? Only the track will reveal the answer. Until then, the countdown to 2026 continues.